beach merchant.
And here we go. Timer counting down. 10-second heads up for all the players. And here we go. Let's see these classes. We're already hovering. As you guys can see, the board has different colors here. So red being DLC, yellow being base game, and blue being co-op. So we have some co-op squares here. One being kill both balls. So you have balls in base game and balls in the DLC. The one standing in front of the castle in the DLC. And then the base game, you have the one in the Everjail. You have kill all demi-human bosses, which is really fun. I like that one a lot. So you have demi-human chiefs. You have all the demi-human queens. You've got Swordmaster aunts. I threw him in there because he's a demi-human, which is really fun, and he's a pain in the ass. We got some other interesting ones like kill Rakshasa and Vike as a co-op square. We got kill Red Wolf and a Red Bear. We have Renala and Rolana as a co-op square as well. So there's a lot of like nice overlap where it's like, okay, well, I can do Renala in base game with some base game squares, but also I, maybe have to do that for the co-op square or, let's see here. Acquire, I can't read it so far damn away for some reason as well. I should use the other screen too. Acquire, I think it's like 8 different remembrances. 3?
Damn, that is a whole lot. It's supposed to
8.
be a merge square, acquire 8 different. Yeah,
it's
8
a co-op
different
square.
remembrances.
Yeah, so that's a long distance one.
2. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 8 different remembrances is insane. I'm surprised to hear with squares like that the pacing on this on this format is still as fast as it is, because that seems crazy fast. And upon just looking at this again, first impressions for me, I'm really excited to be taking it in. That the whole color coding, if I was in this position playing in the player seats right now, I would be having even more of a difficult time, like trying to analyze and find bingo lines, which I think is already like a pretty tough thing to do on empty boards. But with all of this extra color coding, I feel like it makes seeing the vision of what the bingo line looks like even more complicated and complex in a good sort of way, where it's like, oh my god, how is the timing for me gonna work out on this line? How is the timing for my partner gonna work out on this line? How do we prioritize this correctly? How does the sequencing between us look? How does the sequencing between myself and the other person that's in the DLC or base game look? And same thing for my partner. It seems like there's just so much to it, whereas previously there's kind of just the consideration of, all right, let's make sure that I don't share too much information.
Yeah.
And mark squares that I shouldn't be marking early and giving away what I'm going for. But here, like that seems like it's almost like the 3rd or 4th consideration.
Yeah. There's a lot that's going on, and the reason why it's also color coded is so it's making it a lot easier for players to recognize their share of the board. Because if you have everything the same color, it's like, okay, wait, is this one base game or DLC? Is this one base game or DLC? So it being color coded is very easy to be like, okay, red is me. That's all I have to look at right now. I don't have to look at yellow squares. And that makes it just way easier for you to pinpoint what you want and what you should be working towards. 2 different starting classes, by the way, for both our base game players, Zoodle and Aggie, who are both on the top here. By the way, Zoodle going for the Flame Monk Mace, while Aggie goes for the normal club. So I'm wondering why they picked different classes here. We'll see that maybe later as to why they did. And now both Blanks and Parky rushing straight towards that Great Katana check, most likely. Let's see if there's any rush squares here, per se, in the DLC.
I mean, Golden Hippo is a high skill square, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Blanks go for it early. It's good runes. We saw him do that a lot in season 4 of Bingo Brawlers. Him and Tom would cook up all sorts of crazy strats involving Golden Hippo, usually in combination of some sort of rune spend kind of square.
Yeah, that looks like they're both going for the Great Katana check here right away. I am expecting the DLC talismans to be definitely something they're both eyeballing here, because that is a pretty fast square.
I believe we've seen both of them skip Blade of Mercy, both Parky and Blake's.
Yep.
Which is a little bit slower. It's indicative that they're not fully rushing that square than if they had gotten it along the way. However, I imagine they're maybe thinking like trying to be a little bit more balanced here, not putting a major priority on DLC talismans. Or another thing that absolutely needs to be considered is if I'm in Parky's shoes playing against blanks, and I know I'm playing against blanks, which players don't know that for sure. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, no, they would technically, they should in this case, because people have been practicing their designated games.
Mm,
But yeah, they might not know. And they will
okay.
know once the squares marked. They're like, okay, Zoodle marked base game. That means blanks is DLC.
Yeah.
But most likely they would know in this case. Yeah.
Understood. So if I'm Parky and I suspect that I'm going up against blanks here, I am not choosing to go for a rush square because I know how blanks plays DLC bingo. I've seen what he does.
Hmm.
He's really fast, and it's very hard to win a snipeable square off of him. And maybe blanks, knowing his reputation, is a little bit more comfortable not playing into that reputation and using it to his advantage to go set up a little bit before actually hitting those rush squares.
Yeah, I mean, Blanks, our season 4 Bingo Brawlers champion for the DLC. Yeah, I would expect that he is still or has that same speed as he did in season 4, and has been warming up to the DLC board as well with the new co-op squares. Both DLC players now with that great katana check getting the Serpent Bone Blade, which is I think a 20 dex katana, and it's a somber. No, it's not a somber. Is it? Is it actually? I don't
It's a
know.
smithing weapon.
It is a
It's
smithing,
one
but
of
it has a
very
unique
few.
Ash of War, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's one of those weapons that is smithing, but however, you cannot change the Ash of War on it. Okay, and it looks like Blanks is lagging here a little bit. Let's go ahead and refresh him real quick. Hopefully his stream is doing all right. It is. Okay, there we go. Oh, no, he
Yeah,
froze.
the serpent bone blade is one of my least favorite katanas. It has a strange move set where with the R2s you do like this double slash instead of the more traditional like overhead slow swings. Um and it, due to the fact that it doesn't have innate bleed and you can't change its Ash of War, I feel like it ends up being relatively weak, even though it does apply that deadly poison by default.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the double slash is not horrible necessarily, and it has deadly poison, which is really nice. But I mean, Golden Halberd here is what Blanks found at the round table, and that, however, just I think outperforms that Serpent Bone Blade for sure. Giving
Absolutely.
yourself a nice buff here, grabbing some Skidoo fragments. Now, Parker here checking round table for some weapons as well, while Zoodle here in the top left is currently going through Liurnia, possibly grabbing the Academy key here. We do have Renala and Rolana on the board. There is a lot going on. There is Red Wolf and Red Bear. So possibly Zoodle and Blanks here thinking, okay, I can go towards Renala and also Red Wolf, and that way you can get Red Bear as well. Red Bear is a bit of an early-ish boss, I would say, for the DLC. So I think
Yeah.
that might be a play that they're looking for, is that co-op square of Red Wolf and Red Bear right down here.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely a play. Some very good synergy for the base game player there, and getting to that red bear, like you said, is very, very not difficult. Red bear also gets you a little bit closer to that golden hippo idea, and again, does good things for the DLC player's economy. Again, if I'm in Parky's shoes, this sort of play is on the more difficult side, like mechanically. It's something that I personally wouldn't choose to do, especially against a player like Blanks, because I know that Blanks has got these low health rush kind of squares down pretty well. I've seen how he does it in the DLC, and when my strategy, the way that I think about playing against players that I know are mechanically better than me, is to not try to just race them to do these mechanical races with them, because that ends up being really, really, really difficult. And of course, this is all easier said than done, but I feel as if the way to outperform these mechanically strong players like Blanks is to do your best to out strategize them, which again, easier said than done. The mechanically strong players also tend to be pretty good at strategy too, but I feel like you can only be so good at so many things. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I got you. I
come on,
got you.
Blanks.
I got you. That's fair. Parker here doing a bit of a different variation of TLA skip. Had me a little nervous there, but does get the drop down here. Very nice. Going to be going towards Fort Reprimand. And we already see Liurnia, aka Raya Lucaria here from Zoodle, going straight towards that Red Wolf with that Flame Monk mace. While Aggie here actually working towards just getting his character prep, getting that Physic Flask, getting some graces here at Third Church, getting some money as well. Now going towards Shifra, out of all places. Is there like a bow check? What are we looking at? Let's look at the base game here real quick. The base game squares. We have 4 NPC invaders. We have Bloodhound Knight while summoning Blythe. We have Kill Melania. We have Unique Seals, Valiant Gargoyles, Elemer of the Briar. Nothing really that screams Shifra to me here.
These are somber checks down here. Like I remember there being decent somber and smithing stone pickups down here.
2 and 3, I believe, is down here. Actually, there's also a somber 5 near the Dragonkin soldier, so maybe he's thinking of that. But he's not picking up any of those right now. Looks like he's going towards. He's getting the smithing checks here, not the somber ones. He's getting the smithing 3s that are around him, the smithing 2s.
Reading Tom's message in the chat, he's suspecting that Aggie might not know that it's 2 smithing stones per level up. So maybe we're seeing a little bit of a mistake on Aggie's part here. I'm definitely gonna trust Tom on this one. I know that Tom always knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I hope he's aware that that is 2 per stage. I mean, Parky did exactly what she needed to do, 2 per stage. So I'm assuming that she communicated that to Aggie as well when she upgraded her Serpent Bone Blade. Right now, Zoodle here on Red Wolf having a really, really nice fight. Gets the Red Wolf stagger as well. Very nice. Not that much damage, but luckily Red Wolf has such a small health pool that even a +0 weapon can still kind of deal with Red Wolf compared to other bosses in Liurnia. So really nice fight here from Zoodle. And it looks like that Blanks is prepping towards that Red Bear as he is pretty close to it right now, but is also moving towards that Golden Hippo in the DLC.
Yeah, and as we see, pretty tough early mechanical play from Blanks here. He has a +4. Do the DLC players have access to all the smithing stones like
Yes.
they did in? Okay, understood. All right, so it's not going to be that insane. Definitely something that Blanks has plenty of practice at. And it's seeming likely that we're going to see our first square mark here pretty soon.
Yeah, pausing and champing. We do have Red Wolf here down for Zoodle. GG's to Zoodle for killing that Red Wolf so quickly. Only 9 minutes into the match, 9.5 minutes here. And I think now I'm expecting, honestly, Zoodle to go for some smithing stones here and start to upgrade some stuff for himself as well. He just really wanted to get that done, I think, first. It also gives him a nice amount of money dealing with that Red Wolf. And here we have already Aggie currently in Altus, going for possibly that smithing bell bearing.
Where is this smithing bell? Is it not? Oh, it's not a square on the board.
Yeah, I think he's just grabbing it just to be able to reach that +12, which, if I'm being fair, I'm not sure if that's worth the time. I really don't. I know you can only get smithing 4s really in the precipice, the Runestone precipice for Makar is, but that in of itself, traveling all the way through that is a little rough. That's why a lot of people do lean into somber weapons, is because getting those smithing 4s is a little tricky. But maybe this is worth it in the long run. Although if he's upgrading the club, a +12 club could get you decently far. I'm not sure if he's checked any shops at all for other weapons.
And am I correct in saying that the DLC players and the base game players have different weapon seeds?
Correct. Yeah, so they all have the same seed here. Oh, by the way, Blanks, you're dying to the Golden Hippo, the classic Needle Rain. But yeah, both base game and DLC players get the same seed. However, base game and DLC have a separate randomized weapon pool. So even if like Blanks goes to round table and it's like, hey, this is at round table, it's not going to be the same round table for Zoodle. So they can't rely on one player to feed them information like that, which I think is a great idea, because it allows them to kind of think on their own for what they really need in this current match.
Yeah, and it makes it so that we don't get quadruple golden halberd run here.
Yeah, yeah, that too, that too. Keeping the weapon variety alive is one of the big things I think that we try to keep going. Golden Hippo here as well, by the way, for Parky, running that Serpent Bone Blade, already has, there's going to be building up that deadly poison. Hopefully it gets applied here very soon. But yeah, that's like one thing that I think is really important to keeping bingo interesting, but also keeping challenge runs in general interesting, is having weapon variety.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you don't have that, at some point it does just start to become a little bit stale. You know, you're like, oh, it's Bloodhound's Fang again. Oh, it's Starfists again. And seeing different weapons, I think, is what makes things really, really interesting. And seeing interesting Ashes of War as well, you know?
Mm-hmm. And as you said, we do have this sort of race going on in between Parky and Blanks right here. And whoever ends up losing this square should still be interested in killing Golden Hippo for a couple of reasons. One, they obviously get that 200,000 runes, maybe 220. I'm not 100% sure. That's obviously going to be helpful for character building. And two, they get more DLC map access. And that DLC map access can be useful for a couple of things. Golden Braid is a possibility, but it requires knowing the skip from front side Shadow Keep to backside Shadow Keep. That can be a little bit annoying. But most certainly burning the Sealing Tree and killing Consort Radon are things that you most certainly can benefit from on going through Golden Hippo up towards Ramana.
Yeah, I'm both still working on Golden Hippo here right now. It does look like that Blanks might be getting this unless he has an incident happening here. It was still a great fight here from Parky as well on this Golden Hippo, currently in phase 2 at half. However, Blanks should be getting this kill right about now. There it is. GG's to Blanks, going to be marking that first square on the board. Golden Hippo, which for some reason is now invisible on our side. So that's cool. There must be like a filter on this board or something. Let me check it out real quick. There we go. All right, fixed it.
Perfect.
There we go. Beautiful. He just absolutely he did so well. He just destroyed the square out of the board. Zoodle here trying to deal with balls now. So Zoodle's working on like 2 combined squares. I think he just killed balls. I'm not sure. I kind of missed it there. There's a lot always happening with these 2v2 matches, so you sometimes miss some things that are going on. Parky's seeing that Golden Hippo is taken, but still going for it. I think it's a great call here. It's going to give you a lot of money, like you said. It's going to give you some 2 skidoo. It's going to give you access. So I think not backing off here is always a good idea. And yeah, I think for Aggie, however, still kind of in the setup phase a little bit. I think he's just really trying to get as much map presence as possible. I haven't seen him fight anything yet, so maybe he's just kind of getting really, really set up so that he can either catch up to Zoodle or just make sure that he doesn't get sniped, and maybe is waiting for something to be marked.
Something else to be said about Parky is I think previously we've seen her sort of struggle with the stress of bingo. And she's always felt like a little bit pressured, and I think that has maybe caused her to have some nerves and make a couple of unforced errors for that reason. And so I would think this 2v2 format, especially with Aggie, might be helpful for her, because Aggie is another set of eyeballs to ensure that she's able to stay calm and hopefully not let nerves get to her and make these calculated choices to keep going for Hippo instead of panicking out of the fight and choosing to do something else immediately because you just got sniped on the square.
Yeah, potentially, but she's also like just doing really well in that fight. Second try, I believe, or first try on Hippo here. She does get that. It was a lot slower, though, I will say. I'm not sure if that's the Serpent Bone Blade talking or if it's the deadly poison. I'm not sure. But great fight from her. That was no armor as well. Red Bear here now from Blanks. Really quick Red Bell kill. Holy guacamole. Red Bear kill. Holy crap, dude. That is a tongue twister and a half. There we go. Second square here, though, for Team Zoinxz, getting that co-op square. The first co-op square on the board.
Very nice. Yeah, and obviously we see Zoodle had gone for that earlier. I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Does the person that finished the last objective of a co-op square have to mark it?
Yes. Yes, the person that actually completes the square has to mark it. You can't have your teammate hover over it and you'd be like, okay, I'm done, and then they can press it. Like, you have to press it if you completed it, yeah.
Okay. That does also do some interesting things. It allows the other team to get build a more robust picture of what the other team is going for. Because now, for example, Aggie and Parky, if they want to use this information, know that Zoodle had killed Red Wolf at least a little bit ago. That was not something that happened super recently, so they should know. They don't necessarily have to read into Zoodle is right at Red Wolf right now.
Correct, yeah. If anything, they can assume, okay, Blanks just killed Red Bear. That's all they really know. They don't know when the Red Wolf kill happened for Zoodle.
Exactly.
But all they do know, however, still is already, okay, he already killed Red Wolf, which means he already has access to Renala. You know, that's the one thing you can read into for that. But yeah, not knowing when that happened is also interesting. So you can kind of mask with your teammate as well. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this really, really early. It might seem like I just rushed this, or I didn't rush this, but did this just now. But in reality, I did that like 5 minutes ago, and they won't know, which makes it really interesting as well.
Yeah, that definitely adds a little bit more layers of strategy to hiding what you're doing. And we see Zoodle has this Rosus axe. Did he get that from the Liurnia axe check? Do you know, Domo?
He might have. I did not catch that as there have been so many fights going on. But possibly, I could totally see that being one of the axe checks. The Ice Rand Hatchet in Liurnia. Now there is the first square now for Aggenharbor on the board, killing Bloodhound Knight while summoning Blythe. This gives Aggie actually a Somber 2 as well, because Blythe does give you a Somber 2 reward for having him kill.
Curved greatsword. That sucks.
Yeah. Well, which one was it?
The Magma Worm Scale Sword. I feel like Aggie was maybe looking for a weapon upgrade there, because curved greatswords have a lot of phenomenal choices within them. Zamor, Bloodhound's Fang. Bloodhound's Fang is very unlikely to roll to that location, but Zamor is still very strong. Magma Worm is not very good, though.
It's pretty rough. The Charge R2 is probably the worst Charge R2 in the game. But the R1 is pretty solid. It is, however, like, you want to use Charge R2s to create that poise damage more efficiently than using R1s, which is always unfortunate. But it's not my favorite either. I will not lie. Looks like Zoodle here is pushing for the Element of the Briar center square now. And Blanks here going for getting a Leda rune. So they're both just really doing their own thing right now, not looking at co-op squares anymore. We do have already Balls dead for Zoodle. And Blanks is kind of holding on to that, I believe, for just a little bit, trying to get his own stuff first and then going for balls. But it looks like Parky now is going for balls in the DLC here. So this might be a nice little snipe from Team Aggenharbor. Aggie as well also now is in the Liurnia of the Lakes.
Yeah, he definitely could be developing towards that balls Everjail. And maybe we're seeing a little bit of the drawback. We just saw the upside of Zoodle killing Red Wolf very early and then Blanks finishing off the Red Bear square later. We're now maybe seeing the drawbacks of splitting up your progress on those squares, allowing a coordinated team like Aggie and Parky to kill both of them at the same time and snipe the square while forcing one of the players to waste their time. But there we go. Acquire Leda rune is done on Blanks' side, causing a little bit of bingo pressure to come in on this column 4 here.
Column 4 not looking too bad. 7 Altus bosses. We do have Zoodle already has 1 Altus boss down. That is marked here apparently by him. I don't which Altus Plateau Mount Gelmir boss did he kill? Did I miss that?
I think I missed it as well. I'm not 100% sure.
Unless he pre-marked it for Briar.
Possibly.
He might have a pre-1 for Briar, just in case. As he's working on that right now. Not the greatest damage. I believe this Rose's Axe is not fully upgraded. Probably just like a 2, maybe 3 Rose's Axe, which should be fine, though.
He can't wield it. We can see the red X on his weapon here. I'm not sure if he just forgot to drink a physic.
Maybe he doesn't have any money. He maybe just doesn't have any money. Maybe upgraded and just ran out of money. That could be a thing here as well. Parky, however, taking out that balls fight, which is fantastic. And now Aggie going for the other half of that co-op square of killing balls in base game. So this is going to
Yeah.
be a nice second square here for Aggenharbor.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're seeing the benefits of coordinating here, because now that time spent by Zoodle to kill balls is going to end up being pretty wasted, because apparently that didn't even give him enough runes to build out his character, which would have been like the secondary benefit of killing that boss. But now, on top of not getting that secondary benefit, he's not going to get the primary benefit of actually having his objective going to complete a square, because for whatever reason, Zoodle and Blanks have decided that it's not quite time to push onto that square, and Aggie and Parky have decided that coordinating their efforts is worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a tough situation to be in when you're also trying to figure out what is the best option for yourself on your squares, and then what's the best option for co-op, and trying to balance between the two. Balls being marked here by Aggenharbor, and then going another square right afterwards from Zoinxz here, the center square, Element of the Briar. So now they have that column 4 and that diagonal bottom left to top right activated as like a little bit of a threat. And this puts a little bit of pressure actually on Aggie, as there are 2 squares in that diagonal that are base game, and also 2 squares on the column 4 that are also base game. So he's mostly responsible for trying to stop these bingo pressures now, whereas Parky is allowed to try and maybe create some pressure for her own team. You know, if she gets, hypothetically here, Consort Radon, right, activates, you know, column 2 and row 5. Obviously a little too early for Consort Radon, but that still is something that you have to think about as a team perspective, is like, okay, well, where can I stop and where can you progress? And that is always like a really tough thing.
Yeah, and this is kind of going back to that point about structure that I was mentioning earlier. Because if every player can do everything, I feel like it can sort of make it where sometimes teams can get stuck where they're like, okay, well, should I go for this? Should you go for this? Should you go for the block? Should I go for the pressure?
Yeah.
Whereas here it's like, okay, we don't have a choice. You have to go block that. I'm gonna go try to build our own line or something, or do whatever I'm gonna do. Play for majority. DLC talismans getting marked by Blanks finally here, and he's progressing towards or not Blanks, I apologize, by Parky. Misspoke on my side. That's getting marked by Parky. But Blanks is developing towards the Hanging Pot Bell Bearings, which is a very, very fast DLC square. We're going to see him run up to this cliff, jump off to the left, and try to melee the pot off of the cliffside. And assuming he can do that, he will get the first of 2 Hanging Pot Bell Bearings. And then the second one most likely will be up by Ancient Dragon Man. And assuming there's no incidents, and I would know absolutely nothing about having any sort of incident on this jump and Hanging Pot Bell Bearing hit. I've never had a problem with this once in my life. Assuming it all goes well, it should only take a couple of minutes.
There we go. First try for Blanks here. Very nice. Tags that mid-air, grabs the bell bearing. That's one of them. And yeah, if they get the square, that's a lot of pressure. Again, that diagonal don't have 3 squares. And again, then Aggie is fully responsible for blocking that diagonal. And then it also activates row 1 and column 5. So that corner square is a big, big weight for Team Zoinxz here. Currently 4-3, but once that square is marked, it's going to be 5-3. But on top of that, a lot of pressure coming towards Aggenharbor's way.
Yeah, this diagonal is incredibly concerning. And as we can see, Aggie is of course progressing through Margit for the sake of doing Limgrave bosses and getting that. Those 2 diagonal squares are very synergistic. God bosses and Limgrave bosses. There is 2 very viable God bosses in Limgrave. And so yeah, like unfortunately, Aggie's choices are already set here. This is just the route that he's gonna have to go on. But honestly, it's like this is decent synergy. These 2 squares have decent synergy, and then they also play for that column 2 and row 5 bingo that Aggie and Parky absolutely care about. So I don't. If I'm Aggie, I don't hate getting forced into doing this. A lot of the times when you get forced into doing something, it can feel very, very bad. And we do see the Hanging Pot Bell Bearings come through. Blanks had absolutely no problems. a lot of the
Very
times when
nice.
you get forced into doing something as a bingo player, you feel really bad about doing it because it's like, this is going to be a lot of wasted time, but I have to do it to prevent my team from losing. But if I'm Aggie right here, I honestly don't feel terrible about this. Like this square selection is decent. Limgrave bosses and God bosses, good synergy, decent pace. It's really not the worst thing that he could be forced into doing.
Yeah, it definitely also activates that column 1, which no one's on right now, and it also gives them that a little bit of a row 5 pressure,
Mhm.
which, however, has a lot of big things happening, aka Rakshasa and Vike. No one likes that. Millennium and
Mhm.
Consort Down. No one likes those. So that row 5 could be a really nice pressure for Aggenharbor to be like, okay, either we do one of those and they think that we're going to actually push all the hard stuff, or we force them to do all the hard stuff, and that will buy us enough time to try and do other things on the board to kind of stop whatever they're doing. There's always like different approaches to how people play bingo, but I think that would be a very nice approach for Aggenharbor for sure.
Mhm. Right now, we're seeing Zoodle go through this old Altus tunnel cave, and if you're looking at the board and not knowing exactly why Zoodle's doing this, it's because there is both a Smith or a Somber 5 and a Somber 6 within this cave. So that's why he chose to spend his Stone Sword keys to get in here. There's also 2 Colossal Weapon checks if he wants to kill the boss, only 1 if he just wants to pick it up right here. Okay, he doesn't even care about the weapon. That's fair enough. If I was in Zoodle's position, I would probably agree with him. Roses is probably going to be better than any sort of colossal weapon that you pick up, especially when accounting for the stats that would be required to wield it. On the other side, we have Blanks going for his half of the Renala square, and we both know that Zoodle is already in next to Renala, so that's not going to be a very long to complete square for them, and it represents a threat on that row 1 for sure. So we see this sort of idea where I think all of the best bingo players, all of the best bingo teams do this, where they build up multiple lines, but they don't just rush them down and finish them immediately. They make a threat and force their opponents to do something. In this case, they make that diagonal threat, force Aggie to get stuck on Limgrave stuff. And now we see them building up this row 1 where they're synergistically getting 8 different remembrances, synergistically getting Renala and Rolana. And then there's just the unique seal square left hanging out there. And wisely, perhaps, do we see Parky going for seals? I see we just saw that tick up. So is she getting seals? I can't imagine. No, she can't. She's a DLC player.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way. I just got a little bit confused because I saw the numbers tick up over there. But either way, the point is, Aggie is going to have a really hard time getting these seals because he's stuck in Limgrave, and
Yep.
they're very far behind on Renala and Rolana. And because they're far behind on those, they're going to be far behind on 8 different remembrances. So unless Aggie decides to just toss this diagonal threat and go for the row 1 threat, he's in a tough spot. As you can see, the remaining diagonal and row 1 squares are all base game and combo squares. So Aggie's just getting pressured super hard here.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, a lot of weight is currently falling on Aggie, as there is just a lot that base game is going to be able to kind of deal with in this position. But again, like, Parky is also in the position where she can stop column 5. She can try and progress other things for her team as well. It's just the board in of itself is just a little bit tough here, especially with some of these co-op squares being a little tricky / being very long distance. So even if you want to block something, or even if you do want to progress something, some of those co-op squares take so long that it might not be worth the risk. It might not be worth the time investment to put in that much time as a whole team to stop something, and instead try and do some of the individual squares first to try and take those away, because those will always be, if not always be, faster than the co-op squares.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just looking to be very hard, but I think it points out like a cool strategy consideration that has to be made, because beyond just making the bingo threats, you also have to see what which player you're going to be pressuring.
Yep.
And I don't know if Blanks and Zoodle were doing this intentionally, but they've definitely found themselves in this position where Aggie is left with like this borderline impossible choice to make, and Parky can do almost nothing to help him.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, dude, great accidents always happen. And yeah, sometimes it's just like the way the board plays out. You know, they're doing the most straightforward squares possible. I mean, Red Wolf, Red Bear is just an easy square to do as a team. You know, Rune has always been a rushable square. Golden Hippo has always been a rushable square. So those squares, I feel like, just lined up perfectly for them. They're like, okay, well, we can just work with this, which I think is just a nice, happy accident for Team Zoinxz in that case. But then, yeah, pushing the Elemer early, pushing the Hanging Pot Bell Bearings to really then take advantage of the board placement, I think is where, you know, it really shines for Team Zoinxz here. And so I'm excited to see how this is going to play out, though, because as Parky always says, it's not over until it's over, and there's a lot of time, a lot of space to play with here.
Absolutely not over till it's over. There's plenty of mistakes that can be made. There's plenty of misplays that can happen. There's plenty of amazing calls that can happen. Who knows? Maybe Aggie just goes insane and somehow gets all these Limgrave bosses in like 2 minutes, and then we're in a very, very, very different situation. Just at the current moment, it is looking tough for Aggie and Parky. They're going to need to claw their ways back into it.
Yeah. No, I agree. Currently just a really tough position. Doesn't mean it is unwinnable at all. Yeah, the damage from the club, like I said, it is good early on, but only early on. At some point, it will fall off, and I think at some point then Aggie will have to make a choice of like, okay, I have to upgrade. I think he was hoping for a good weapon there from that Tree Sentinel. It is a Limgrave boss, but also allows him to do a Halberd check. And sometimes, that Dragon Halberd just praises us and just shows up. And you're like, oh, thank God. Finally, some DPS is in my pocket. Sadly, Gargoyle Halberd, though, this time around for Aggie. Renala here for Zoodle. Lots of damage coming out. It's got to be a little careful. It does have the stats now to wield the Rose's Axe, though. It deals a lot of damage with that Ash of War. It's so strong. It's so good.
I do have to point out that we just saw Blanks do the front side shadow keep to back side shadow keep skip, which is going to get him pretty close to catching up with Parky. He's still most likely going to lose this golden braid race. However, I think it goes to show that you definitely, if you know that front side to back side skip, you can end up saving a lot of time, because Parky had to go all the way around through Church Water District, and that takes a long time to do, and Blanks almost makes up the time, but fortunately for Team Aggenharbor, sorry.
Good.
Fortunately for them, she is not going to be getting sniped right here.
Yeah, nice little Skidoo pickup here. Then also getting that square, going to be blocking out that column 5. That is really, really huge here for Team Aggenharbor for sure. That Renala square going to be marked here by Zoodle after killing that Renala. That is huge for them. Now that row 1 pressure's building. Luckily for Aggie, he already has, I think, 2 seals. No, he has 1. So both him and Zoodle have only 1 seal. But 8 remembrances, again, that's a lot. That's a tall order. Which could go to either team still at this point. They do have 2 remembrances, Team Zoinxz, but 8 is a big number, and that's going to be really, if you focus on those types of fights, you can burn it down very quickly, but if you aren't set up for it, it can cost a lot of travel time to get to all of those remembrance bosses and then kill them efficiently on top of that, and having the DPS to really deal with those fights as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do see Aggie almost done with these Limgrave bosses, which is going to do a phenomenal job at relieving some pressure here.
Yeah.
Causing that diagonal to no longer be a threat. And then we're really only looking at the row 1 and column 4. There's definitely some counterplay opportunity here. Personally, if I am in Team Aggenharbor's shoes right here, I'm feeling like I'm behind, and my teammate and I need to make some counterplay in order to buy ourselves a way back into this game. So if I'm sitting in their shoes, I'm really looking at that column 2, getting that 8 bosses in Limgrave to shut down the diagonal, and then putting a big priority on the combo square of 8 different Remembrance bosses. Valiant Gargoyles. To get there, you have to kill Radon, Remembrance boss. It gets you right next to the Regal Ancestral Spirit, Remembrance boss. And then, of course, Consort Radon is also sitting on that column, which in the process of going for Consort Radon, you're getting Ramana, you're getting Mesmer. And just like that, you're getting really, really close to getting those 8 different Remembrance bosses done. So I think there's absolutely a great opportunity for counterplay here. We do see Blanks finishing up that kill a base game boss in the DLC by killing that Tree Sentinel by the Golden Braid. Also telling Parky that it was close, that they had a close race on that Golden Braid.
And there's the mark here now for those Limgrave bosses. And yeah, Melania for Zoodle here. I think this is a great block for row 5, but also, again, another Remembrance towards that row 1. So I think they're really looking at possibly bulldozing row 1 for Team Zoinxz, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, honestly, I'm not going to lie. Just looking at Zoinx's squares, besides the Red Wolf and Red Bear square, that is a very mean like tic-tac-toe setup, right? Where you have multiple winning lines kind of lining up. You got column 3, you got the diagonal, you got column 2, row 1, row 2. The overall, all of those clumped up squares are just creating so much pressure in different directions. It's just really, really good for Team Zoinxz in this situation as well. And yeah, Mesmer now here as well for Blanks. They're both on Remembrance fights right now. And like I said, if you have the time, if you have the graces and the map and the damage, you can burst through 8 Remembrance bosses pretty damn quickly, and that's exactly what they're showcasing right now.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in agreement with Team Zoinxz here. I think 8 Remembrance bosses is absolutely the strongest square on the board right here. I think whoever wins that square is actually in the driver's seat and likely to win. Because again, that column 2, very threatening for Aggie and Parky, and that again, that row 1, very threatening for Zoodle and Blanks.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not expecting, honestly, that Aggie and Parky can really catch up here on the 8 Remembrance bosses unless they start to really focus on that, like, right now. Because as soon as these 2 fights are over, it's going to be 4-1 Remembrance for Team Zoinxz. And that's a big gap, I think. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of DPS that they would have to catch up on. And unless they have incidences happening, I see this already being a square for Team Blue.
Yeah. And assuming we get this 8 different Remembrances going Blue's way, and Melania going Blue's way as well, I believe that is going to be, well, no, there's still going to be column 1 as a potential red bingo.
Yep.
But my philosophy with bingo has always been, if you're behind, you need to figure out some sort of way to get counterplay. You need to make your opponents do something that they don't want to do, and the way that you do that is by making bingo threats. And that their options are getting very, very limited right here, putting them in a really tough spot.
Oh, Zoodle does die to Melania here, though. Does get waterfouled in phase 2, so he has to reset that whole fight. Mesmer is down here for Blanks, though, so they technically have 3 Remembrances now, not just 2. So Blanks will have to tick that square up. I mean, he doesn't have to necessarily, but it's just easier to keep track that way. Making his way towards Romina, I think, at this point. And that's going to also set him up nicely for that column 1, burn the ceiling tree. So that's going to take away that last threat that pretty much Aggenharbor has in their pocket. Row 5 is going to be taken away by Melania, and then the burning ceiling tree as well for that column 1. So they're pretty much, at this point, going to be forcing that majority game.
Yeah, I mean, that's... I really absolutely agree with Zoinx's call here. They go for this Remembrance, ceiling tree, Consort Radon, Melania idea. I think at the perfect time. They set everything up, made it so that Aggie had to get stuck doing Limgrave stuff. Parky was honestly out of the game due to what squares were relevant for such a long period of time. And now they pivot into this endgame idea, and they do it a little bit faster than we see Aggie and Parky getting it, and putting them in a really, really strong position going into this endgame.
Yeah, Parky here now currently on Mesmer herself, going to try and get a Remembrance for her team as well. Still using the Serpent Bone Blade, which, I mean, is fair. You put a lot of time into and you're investing a bunch of time into upgrading one weapon. You don't really want to do it again because it makes you lose at least a couple of minutes. So she's kind of sticking with it, and hopefully that pays out. Mesmer is weak to slash, so the katana here is actually a good weapon to use. But sadly, that's not going to be the case for Romina, who I believe is weak to thrusts, pierce.
I'm not sure.
Or no, it's strike. I think it's strike, actually. A strike damage. That's why the anvil hammer is so great versus her. Yeah, at the very least, though, I think they're recognizing that the Remembrance Square is pretty important. Zoodle here actually pivoting off of Melania, by the way, now currently going towards the Volcano Manor, which is where Aggie was, possibly going to be grabbing also that seal. Already 4 seals here for Aggie, though. Whereas Zoodle only has 1, so this is going to stop that row 1 already. And that's going to help out Team Aggenharbor, relieve some of that pressure. Like, once you block a bingo, the amount of pressure that's taken off, and there it is, that mark, collect 5 unique seals, going to be marked here by Aggie. Really nice block here, going to be maybe try and force now that column 1, but does block that row 1 at the very least, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think the fact that Zoodle goes to Melania and gets stuck on her for a little bit is definitely going to play a pretty key role into a potential Aggenharbor comeback here. From Zoodle's perspective, I absolutely get where he's coming from. He's on Melania. He's getting stuck. Melania herself is not super necessary. If you're in Team Zoinx's position, you expect that Consort Radon is going your way, and you expect that the 8 different remembrances you've got to lead on. So Melania, the square herself, is not super necessary, and just go for a different remembrance instead of going for Melania, or go for a different idea instead of getting stuck on Melania. I understand why Zoodle is going for this idea, but as you said, it looked like he pivoted off into this unique seals plan and ended up wasting a little bit of time chasing down Aggie, who already had a lead on that.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had my background Elden Ring playlist turn into Sonic and Chill, so that just caught me off guard for a second. It was just like Sonic and Chill, like drum and bass playing all of a sudden. No, I agree. I think what they're looking at is huge. I do hope that Aggenharbor, at least Aggie, goes for god bosses now. I think that'd be super, super nice, because then that column 1, row 5 looks way more promising and really takes Zoodle and Blanks out of possibly doing Remembrance bosses, because it's like, okay, column 1 and row 5 look a little bit more dangerous. Let's take our foot off the pedal on the Remembrance stuff, because that is a huge time sink, and go for the other things instead, which might give them Aggenharbor enough time to maybe look at doing column 2. There's like this kind of like pivoting back and forth between those lines.
Yeah, I absolutely get where you're coming from there. The only problem I see with that plan is the fact that I don't think there's anything that's pushing Blanks off of going for the ceiling tree and the Consort Radon play here, considering that goes for the 8 different remembrances square, very powerful, goes for column 1 block, obviously very powerful, goes for row 5 block, and as we can see we see those 3 like pretty key squares. Blanks has a lead on them. I simply don't think there's anything that could take Blanks off of this idea unless he started to believe that Parky was ahead of him on it, but I don't see that happening either.
Okay, do we have possibly, that is Rakshasas, yeah. Aggie's going to be grabbing here some Somber Stones here, maybe also going for Rykard later on as a Remembrance boss. That wouldn't be the worst idea. Maybe work towards that column 2. Mesmer fight here still for Parky. The damage is not too bad. I do wonder if she has any talismans. I don't think she has any on right now, does she? Did she buy any at all?
She did pick up 4 DLC talismans, so she probably has like Blade of Mercy.
Okay. Yeah, because like even her status bar doesn't show really any buffs at all. So she doesn't have Ritual Sword Talisman. She doesn't have what seems to be Thorny Cracked Tear or the Rotten Sword Insignia. So a lot of like honestly really critical DPS talismans she's missing, and I think that is honestly where she's losing a lot of momentum in these fights, because she probably has very similar DPS almost to Blanks, but without those talismans she can't really show for it.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely something that we saw in season 4 DLC bingo. The buying of the talismans and the character building was so key.
Yeah.
Definitely game winning lots and lots of times. That's why we saw backhand blades with all the multi-hit stuff end up being so popular.
Yeah, there's a lot happening on screen right now. We have Radon on the top left. We've got Gonska Noble top right. We got Mesmer bottom right. Lots of happening. This is what happens when 2v2s happen. Just a lot happening on screen. There is the burn the ceiling tree though here for Blanks, now blocking that column 1 already, which allows them to know, okay, at the very least they killed Mesmer and Romina, which is already 2 remembrances to keep track of. So maybe they're already being contested on remembrances, but we don't know here. It looks like that Blanks might be working all the way towards Radon, or at the very least just get the Grace here. But that would block out that column 2 and row 5 at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I know it seems a little ridiculous. It seems very early for Consort Radon, but honestly, I don't hate the idea. I think Consort Radon comboed with getting an extra remembrance, comboed with getting the map progress for the full Gravebird armor set. I think it's a very viable choice to be making here, especially when we look at the color coding of the remaining squares. There is 2 red squares and 4 blue squares, meaning that Blanks is kind of running out of things to do. There's a lot more yellow squares than there are red squares remaining.
Yeah, but Parky here getting a very last hit stun right before Mesmer's about to do his phase 2 explosion attack, getting what was that, just a tutorial pop-up? Getting the kill here, which is really nice. Another remembrance for Team Aggenharbor, and I'm going to go and level, which would be really nice. And Melania again though for Zoodle right after that Radon fight. So yeah, like I said, they're really pushing that remembrance square. They're really going for remembrance into also that Consort Radon. I think they're just trying to get all of the big stuff now for their own team, and getting all the like the squares that funnel into other squares. Consort Radon funnels into remembrance bosses. Melania funnels into remembrance bosses. So they're trying to, like, kill 3 birds with 1 stone kind of situation in that case.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like it. We see Blanks choosing to go for Gravebird armor. I was thinking he was maybe going to go for Ons, but no, it looks like he's instead going to pick up one of the Gravebird armor sets. Do we see him light this Grace over here, since that is one of the demi-humans that he needs to kill?
No. Did not mean to go for that, yeah. But that does give them that road too then, which would be Valiant Gargs and demi-human bosses, and that is also a lot of time. So I think they're just playing around with like threat after threat after threat too, which is really nice. Like, they're really honestly dividing up their time very well, where they're like, okay, this is definitely something that we should just block just to be safe. Okay, this is where we can pressure a little bit. Let's get that out of here. Zoodle sadly dying to Melania again here, this time in phase 1 though. Maybe he pivots off, or maybe he comes back. I'm not sure. Aggie here now on Rykard. Gonna go for that remembrance boss.
Yeah, I mean, again, remembrance bosses is a good square to be getting right here. Rykard does not have a whole lot of synergy with the rest of the board. Only an Altus boss, I suppose, which is decent. That's good enough for sure. But it does not feel nearly as good as Melania or Radon would feel right here.
Yeah, no, 100%. This is definitely
Oh, it's also a god boss. I'm missing god boss. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, that's going to be the last god boss that he needs, which is really nice. So that's a nice little double up here from Aggie, is getting the god boss, but also a remembrance boss for his team. And that would again progress that row 5, which again that just makes Zoodle's decision even better, because then they're progressing towards that row 5, but it's being stopped immediately once Zoodle gets this Melania kill, unless Zoodle has maybe a little bit of a Melania incident and then all of a sudden Aggie grabs it from him. But that's going to be a little tough because I don't even think that Aggie has much of a weapon going on right now. He does have Rakshasa, but I'm not sure if it's even fully upgraded.
I believe even if we do see a Melania incident on Zoodle's end, the harder part for Team Aggenharbor is going to be Consort Radon here.
Yeah.
Blanks has a massive lead on Consort Radon,
Massive.
and especially if we see Team Red mark God bosses, I have to imagine that Blanks chooses to actually pursue Consort Radon instead of letting it sit.
Yeah, I think he's just going for that right now. I think once you get past the staircase, most of the time players will fully commit. Unless he sees something else being marked by Parky. Like if he gets to Letta and he clears Letta and then he sees Parky, for example, mark Gravebird armor set or Egon's finger, for example, he's like, oh, then you know that you have enough time to pivot off a little bit and work on something else and then come back. But if that doesn't happen, yeah, I'm expecting a full Consort Radon run through here right now from Blanks.
We did see Aggie die there, which is going to be a little bit of time loss, going to delay the mark of the God bosses and the development of the Remembrance square here, and probably more importantly, make it harder for Aggie to get this snipe onto Melania.
Yeah, phase 2 here now for Zoodle currently on Melania. Does get tagged here. The fun thing that I like about the differences between base game and DLC, they both have their difficulties, right? Because like base game, even though it is base game, which is technically easier than the DLC, you don't have all the flasks. So all of your healing is very, very limited and also very weak compared to the DLC, where you have all maxed out flasks and they're plus 12, so you have the maximum healing, but you also have bosses dealing insane amount of damage. Zoodle here dying again to phase 2. So this is looking like a little bit of an incident here now at this point, which is giving Aggie enough time to possibly catch up. Very possibly though, it's not guaranteed. It never is, but the time is there.
Yeah, I mean, this could be the door that the lucky bit that they need to have this door open for Team Aggenharbor. If we can see this, Blanks does get that full Gravebird armor set, indicating that he is very far into Enir Ilum. I'm curious if that's gonna mess with Parky here. Like if I'm sitting in Parky's shoes, seeing that we're down 6-9, there is 2 bingos that we can get remaining, being column 2 and row 5. Both of them run through the Consort Radon square. If I'm sitting in that position, even though I know that I'm so far behind, I think I'm going for it anyway, because I just have to assume that Blanks is gonna hold on to his priority, not go for Consort Radon, or maybe have an incident. And if I'm Parky, I go for it and hope it works out, because honestly, the way that I'm looking at this is I don't see how we win this game if we don't get this Consort Radon square and keep up some semblance of pressure.
Oh, no, I agree 100%. Yeah, it's I do wonder the damage output though. That's what I'm very curious about, because at this point they have been rushing a lot, and Blanks has been rushing a lot of things, so I don't know what his Skidoo level is at. So depending on his Skidoo level, this could be a little tough. This could be a little bit of a tall order doing, Consort Radon at like what, Skidoo level 5, 6 maybe. There it is. Square being marked as well now from Aggie. Does get the record kill. GG's to him, marking that 4 bosses with the word God in it. So it's now currently 9-7 for Zoinxz. Aggenharbor is slowly creeping back though, and now Ag is going for those upgrades. Like I said, just as I assumed, he does have good weapons, but he doesn't have the upgrades for it just yet. And so now he's going to go for those upgrades, which is a little late into the game. 55 minutes in, you're getting those Somber Stones now. That's a little tough here, but once you have it upgraded, hopefully Rakshasas will be enough to deal with Melania. If Zoodle does not get her here very soon, I think Rakshasa actually would be really good in the case that it is a heavy weapon, because it is a great katana. So those running R1s are going to be, or crouching R1s even, are going to be really good to micro staggering her and getting those staggers that you need to really kind of expedite that fight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Gotta love the running and crouching R1s on the great katana. They're very very strong, especially when they combo into the second move of the R1 chain, which is again just another like quick stab.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm expecting that to work out really well here for Aggie if he does get that set up. But Zoodle here looking like he's going to get the fight this time around. Very low on the Melania fight. Only a quarter left, if that. She does one more Scarlet Ionia. Romina here now for Parky. Got some armor now. And also also still be rocking that Serpent Bone Blade. The damage is actually not that bad. Gets a nice stagger here. I believe Romina is also susceptible to poison, but I'm not 100%. Maybe not, actually, because she is...
I don't think so.
Yeah. She might not be. I don't know. You know, Moog is the Lord of Blood, but he bleeds like a crazy person. So, I mean, I don't know, man.
Zoodle died.
And here we have it. Melania now from Aggie. This is a full-on Melania race at this point. And Aggie goes in first. And
Okay,
Aggie's damage
I
is not horrible.
This should be a better weapon. Like, Aggie should be in a good spot to kill Melania here. But again, there is still the issue of Consort Radon.
Yep. But
honestly,
look at the micro staggers, man. Look at that first stagger already. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely good news for Team Aggenharbor, but they are most certainly not out of the woods yet. I feel like the best thing that could happen here is for Team Aggenharbor is for Blanks to finish up Letta and for both Zoodle and Aggie to get stuck on Melania for like a little bit.
Yeah.
That way, maybe there's a chance that Blanks decides it's not time to go to Consort Radon yet. And that gives Parky just a little bit of time to catch up and then get the Melania kill, get the Radon kill. But again, it's all very wishful thinking. It's going to be hard.
Insane damage here coming from Aggie. Already in phase 2. Zoodle is only at half health now on the Melania. Almost at the same time they entered, but like I said, that Rakshasa weapon putting in so much work versus Melania here. Just overall a way better weapon versus Melania than that Rose's axe, just because of it being a great katana, being heavy, those R1s micro staggering, the poise damage, the charged R2. Like, it is genuinely one of the best weapons you can probably use versus Melania here in this case. For bingo, you know, really, really strong here. Should get another stagger here very soon. Phase 2 here very soon. There it is. Goes for that. Already at half health. Zoodle here still not in phase 2 at this moment. Letta champions are down here for Blanks now, making his way towards Consort Radon. Romina is still up here for Parky. She's got to be careful here. Almost dies towards those swipes attacks from that Romina phase 2. A lot happening. 2 Scarlet Ionias on screen right now. Aggie, however, is way closer to killing this Melania here. Has to be careful. Both of them finishing their Scarlet Ionias at the same time. Bleed proc here for Aggie on the Melania. Only a couple more hits left. Zoodle here, sadly, really far behind on that health bar. This will be a pretty big snipe here from Aggie with that Rakshasa Great Katana. Very nice fight so far.
And upon looking at it, there is actually a majority kind of strat that Aggenharbor can get to here.
Oh, there it is.
Maybe Parky doesn't even need to go for Radon, since that's such a long remembrance. They, of course, would need to win Valiant, Gargs, or Remembrances to stop the column 2 if they're tossing Consort Radon. But maybe, especially with this big Melania snipe coming through, we see 9 to 8 right here. We expect Radon to go the way of Team Zoinxz. That's going to be 10 to 8. I mean, that's definitely within majority reach. Team Aggenharbor can definitely make a majority play. Parky doesn't need to snipe Consort Radon here.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, if anything, the Consort Radon is the only DLC square left. You still have 4 co-op squares. Parky could just go ahead and start working on any of those instead. You know, go for the Romina for the Remembrance maybe, but then back off of that and start working on the side stuff instead. Why not? Go for Swordmaster Ans, go for Demi-Human Mariga, go for Rakshasa, go for Egon's Finger. Like, you have so much like space to work with right now. Like, you don't limit yourself to only like your own squares, right? I think that's a cool thing within this format is like you don't feel too limited by your single player squares. I would say, you know, you still have a lot of co-op square mobility here, and yeah, they could definitely bring it back in that case.
Especially if we see blanks get caught on Radon here for a little bit. Now that's a bad bet. It's a bad bet to say good players are going to mess up hard fights. However, Radon is still a hard fight, and it's definitely possible. We've seen very good players get killed by this boss many times in a row.
Yeah, I mean, it is probably one of the hardest fights out there right now. Zoodle does get the Millennia kill here, though. GG's to Zoodle, finally gets that, clears that off the board. 6-4 remembrances. This will be 7 remembrances once the Promised Concert Radon falls for blanks. And that will be a block on row 5 and column 2 once he does get that. But that doesn't necessarily kick Aggenharbor out of the fight. That makes things really, really interesting here.
Yeah, I mean, assuming Remembrances and Radon go Team Blue's way, which is what's looking pretty likely right now, most of the rest of the squares remaining are all pretty even. It would be 11-8. Still a hard comeback to make for Team Red, Team Aggenharbor. However, not out of it, like you said.
Yep. This could be huge for sure. Very interested to see how this plays out. There it is, though. GG's to Parky, even though she was using a poison weapon that the Romina is weak against, or not weak against, immune against. She still gets that kill. So that's 5 remembrances to 6 now on that acquire 8 different remembrances square. So that's still huge. They just need 3 more for Parky here now. She is pivoting off. This is such a good call here. She's like, okay, I'm not going to go. Because blanks did mark burn the ceiling tree, so their assumption that he's doing Radon, I don't think is a bad assumption at all. So her moving off of that right afterwards and going for Rolana here instead, so another remembrance, is such a better call, 100%. If they can snipe away the remembrance square now at this point as well, this is looking like one huge race to see who can get co-op squares first.
It's going to be really tough, though, from our perspective. We can see Zoodle is heading downstairs towards that regal ancestral spirit, towards the valiant Gargs. Aggie is trying to chase on this line. He's going to kill Radon right now to open up that meteor strike to allow him to get to the position where Zoodle's at right now. But again, he's chasing, and it's going to be really hard to win this valiant Garg square, really hard to win this Remembrance boss's square by going for that regal ancestral spirit, because again, both players, we find them both being behind right now on Team Aggenharbor's side.
Yeah, but keep in mind, picking Regal Ancestor Spirit here, I don't know if that's the best idea. Zoodle's DPS is pretty alright, but the healing on Regal Ancestor Spirit can be obnoxious. They could stall out a fight by a lot, and that might give Aggenharbor enough time to possibly take that away. Radon here is going to give them 6 remembrances. Rolana is going to give them 7. So whatever they pick, it doesn't have to be Regal, and Regal might be actually like a really bad choice in this case. Nice poison proc here on Rolana here from Parky. Radon here for Aggie, almost dead already. Huge damage with that Rakshasa. What the hell do you call that, Aggenharbor? Fury Cutter? I don't know. That's a Pokemon move, but it's the same thing. Oh, Weed Cutter? Oh, okay, close enough. Yeah, nice one cycle.
Yeah, I mean, if Parky gets this Rolana kill quickly, I believe we're going to see Aggie go underground here. And that's going to be a hard race to win against Zoodle, considering how far behind he is.
Yeah.
But if Parky can get this Rolana kill quickly, maybe she has like Dancing Lion as a quick remembrance option. Beyond the Gaius, I guess you could do Gaius for sure.
She should have, yeah, you're right.
Those are fast options, and we could maybe see this Remembrance square end up being pretty competitive. by that point, we would expect Blanks to have this phase 2 consort Radon done. That he's just been casually doing that this entire time in the bottom left, not having many issues. He's about to get that done, putting Team Blue at 7 of 8 remembrances, making Zoodle going for the Regal Ancestral Spirit, most likely being their 8th. And then the only question remaining is, will Parky get this Rolana plus Gaius, Rolana plus Dancing Lion, or will Aggie somehow manage to get to that Regal Ancestral Spirit before Zoodle, causing that square to flip one direction or the other? And again, if we're seeing that square flip, this is incredibly close. This goes from being a hard comeback for Team Aggenharbor to being almost even.
And there it is. There is the Radon kill here now for Team Zoinxz here, blocking at the row 1, the row 5, and the column 2, and that being one last remembrance that they need on the board. But Parky also killing Rolana at the same time, which means that they have 7. Oh, and there's the Gaius from Blanks, and there's the Gaius from Parky. This is going to be a bit of a Gaius race here, but Parky is sitting down to level. Oh, this is going to be interesting. I think in this case, sadly, Blanks does probably get this first, mostly because he's in first, but also he does have thrusting attacks with this Golden Halberd that Gaius is weak to. Oh, that's a lot of damage. Yeah, this is not looking like it's going to work out for Parky. That jumping out 2 is nothing compared to those charge R2 Golden Halberd attacks. That is so much more damage.
Yeah, it's definitely not over until it's over, like Parky would say. But again, betting on Blanks to have an incident is a tough bet to make. However, on the overworld or the base game player's side, we see I bet Aggie's pretty grateful that he did go to develop this underground section, because he's gonna be able to have a decent chance at competing for Valiant Gargoyles here.
Yep.
Zoodle is, of course, pretty far ahead of him on this Valiant Gargs, and you may be asking, like, why aren't either of the underground players going to be going for Regal Ancestral Spirit at this point? And it's because, well,
the square is marked. Because
exactly.
Yeah, there it is. The square is marked here from Blanks now. That is 11 to 8. So they need 2 more squares to win. There is only base game squares or co-op squares left. So Blanks, all he can do now is work on demi-human bosses, Egon's Finger, or Rakshasa. And Parky can do those same things, but it looks like she's currently staying in the fight, not quitting out. Maybe because she wants the money or she wants the Skidoo fragments. I'm not too sure. But that leaves them only to those 3 co-op squares to work on. Well, yeah. Zoodle and Aggie are going to be racing on gargoyles here, but Aggie, with that weed cutter, making a lot of bleed procs happen and taking out that mimic tier, not too far behind from Zoodle. Maybe, I'd say like 60 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, Valiant Gargs is certainly a boss fight.
Yeah.
I would not assume that everyone is always going to get Valiant Gargs first time. However, from a build crafting perspective, Zoodle is in a much better spot than Aggie is here due to the magic damage of the Rosus axe. So we can hope for content's sake that we see a little bit of a Zoodle incident on Valiant Gargs here, and perhaps a little bit of an Aggie comeback to extend this game. However, it is still going to be a little tough on Aggie's side.
That's a lot of damage. Yeah, that Rose axe is definitely doing some really nice damage. We have the Whirlwind coming in, though. Lots of damage. Luckily, Zoodle has been using a lot of his money to be leveling Vigor here, so he can take some hits very nicely. Has only a Sacred +1, though, on his healing flask. That healing is going to be tough. So if he does take huge chunks of damage, he has to, like, chug his flask to make sure to make up for that damage that he's taking. And it is going to be a bit of a problem if he does get tagged here on this duo fight a lot, which can be really tough here when both are active.
And I will say, at this point in the game, it's kind of interesting. If the score was a little bit closer, if it was like 9-10 right now, this is kind of just a base game 1v1 end game, due to the fact that the DLC players should never be the limiting factor on any remaining square. They should have more than enough time to complete all of their remaining objectives before it would matter when it comes time to marking squares.
Zoodle a little bit in hot water here as he is currently poisoned, doesn't have any boluses to get rid of that status, and only has 1 flask left, but does take one of the gargoyles out. He is now on a timer. However, still poisoned, no healing, which means he is slowly taking, and any chip damage that he takes will make this a very, very hard fight. So Zoodle has to really clutch up here. Possibly, with that damage, we'll be fine. 2 charged R2s back-to-back. He is close to a stagger. There it is, jumping R2. I think Zoodle's got this. Very nice riposte damage here. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And there it is. Valiant Gargoyles marked here by Zoodle. Very huge. Alabaster's Lord Sword dropping. GG's, though, here by Zoodle. 12 squares to 8 now for Zoinxz. And this is going to be putting them in a winning position for a possible bingo line as well, which is kill all demi-human bosses.
Yeah, and we find ourselves in this position where Team Aggenharbor needs to snipe all 5 remaining squares, which means, again, due to the fact that the DLC players should never be the limiting factor on any square remaining, this is kind of just a 1v1 end game between our top 2 players here, Aggie and Zoodle. And what needs to happen is Aggie, in order for him to win, he needs to guess what Zoodle is doing perfectly every time and do it faster.
Yep.
And for Zoodle, he simply needs that to not happen one time and get 1 square to go through. And it looks like his first selection is going to be NPC invaders. We do occasionally see some strategy coming out from players in Zoodle's position where they'll choose to develop multiple squares for the sake of making it harder to snipe individual squares. So we'll see if he chooses to split progress or if he instead just rushes down the invaders.
Swordmaster Once was already killed by blanks as well. That's one of the demi-human bosses. As we said before, demi-human bosses, it says all of them, which means Swordmaster Once, demi-human chiefs, all of the demi-human queens. There's 1 demi-human queen in the DLC and Swordmaster Once, and the demi-human chiefs and the 3 other demi-human queens are in the base game. So a lot more on the base game side than on the DLC side here, but looks like that might not even come to that. NPC invaders. This is a race again between Zoodle and Aggie, both making the right call here to go for NPC invaders. Second NPC invader, though, here for Zoodle, trying to get that last hit on Millicent here. This would be his number 2 invader. And Aggie going for Anastasia.
Which will also be his number 2 invader.
Yep.
But yeah, as we can see, Zoodle does in fact have a lead on the NPC invaders, and he does seem to just be rushing it down. And if Zoodle does get this square, that is going to be game over. We see him going for Henricus. Is that the name of this guy?
Yes.
Up here by the Coliseum?
Correct.
Yes. See him going for Henricus. That'll be Zoodle's 3rd. And then presumably Nereus as Zoodle's 4th is what he's going to choose. Aggie going from Anastasia to Kaled to go for Millicent as his 3rd.
Dude, I hope one of them realizes you got Alberich and Round Table. Just jump off the balcony, go straight down there. You have enough damage. Just take out that NPC invader instead. You don't have to travel for that guy. And you have enough damage for that, for sure. Yeah, Henricus gets a 1-shot by the Rose's axe here. Absolutely decimated. Round Table now. But no, yeah, he's going for Nereus. Zoodle is going for Nereus. Gets that 3rd NPC invader here. And now Aggie also gets that Millicent. Is now going towards... What the hell? Is he going towards Magnus? No, he's going towards Eleanor Poleblade. I think. No one going Round Table. That's crazy.
Eleonora doesn't spawn in until Yura's dead. If that's what he's going for, Eleonora is not going to spawn in.
Yeah, I'm not sure how this plays out. Alberich would have definitely been the move here, but this is going to be a possible 13th square. Yeah, look at that. 13th square here from Zoinxz, and there it is, GG's. GG's to Zoinxz here, taking the first match of the day. Zoinxz versus Aggenharbor, 13-8. Hot diggity damn. There it is.
This was a lot of fun. This is a very fun format, Domo.
Thank you. Yeah, it took a little bit of cooking, a little bit of practice, but this is a very interesting 2v2 setup. I think the co-op scores make it really, really enjoyable here. All the players stretching now. You know it's stressful because it's like an hour of just like things happening over and over again. Holy fuck balls. I mean, sorry my language, but like Jesus. Valleyman with the 100 gifties, dropping that during the first bingo match. Thank you so much, Valleyman. Anyone got a gifted sub, please give your thanks to Valleyman for those 100 gifties. Good God. Holy shit indeed. All right. Thank you so much, man. Please, clappies, pat him on the back, whatever you need to do. Valleyman, thank you so much for the support, bro. Appreciate that. We'll go ahead and see if the players are ready for post-interview. Let me see.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed watching this game, and I'm very curious to ask all these players some questions. I'm curious how they felt from their side, like the flow of the game, because it seemed like there was a lot of focus on the same things from both teams at similar times. So I'm curious if they liked that, didn't like that,
yeah,
and how it just felt on their end.
100% here. We got some thumbs up here from Zoodle and Blanks. We'll go ahead and we'll move over to the post game here. Let me see. Hopefully it's got all set up the way it's supposed to be. Kind of, for the most part. I had to do this while we're in the middle of commentating. Let me move Zoodle's face just a little bit here. There we go. Make him a little bit smaller maybe as well. There we go. There we go. Beautiful. All right. We fixed it. The squares are also not perfect. Like I said, there's some things I can't set up until I'm actually watching or spectating a match. And I have to do that literally in post while the match is happening, because otherwise those things don't show up. But huge match here. Let's bring in Zoodle and Blanks and also Parky.
Let's do it.
Welcome in, guys. Welcome on in. I'm bringing in everyone at the same time. Welcome in. GG's, everyone.
Yo,
GG's.
One hell of a first game, man. Nice showcase. First, Team Zoinxz here. GG's to the victory here at 13-8. Really strong right corner on the board here. Like a bunch of just cluttered squares all together, which gave you a lot of presence. Was that the idea, or was that mostly just like, hey, all of these squares are a nice and early rush anyways, let's just get all of those, and it just became a nice clutter to where you were able to increase on that pressure and work on that?
Yeah. So my plan from the start, I saw Hippo and then I saw Letterman on the same line, and I was like, okay, that's like super high priority. So the plan was to do Hippo, and then Zoodle was going to go and do Red Wolf, and then after Hippo, I was going to go and do the Red Bear, and then I'd cash it on Letterman after that. So I think building the pressure in that line opened us up to be able to just rush whatever square we wanted to do afterwards, because there already was like a building threat, like, you know, that column 4. Then we started building up the row 1, and yeah, I definitely think that top corner definitely contributed a lot to this game.
Yeah, that was a very strong corner for sure. Definitely opened up a lot. Team Aggenharbor here. What was the approach for you guys looking at this board and being obviously new to the whole format with co-op squares and everything? There is a lot that is obviously thrown at you from the very beginning. Like, what was the idea looking at everything and looking at the classes and stuff?
Well, on the base game end, none of the squares stood out as like terribly rushable, except for Bloodhound Knight with Blythe, which I'm not gonna lie, I have no recollection of how you actually do that square, so I put it off for a little bit. I decided to just set up a weapon real quick, and then Rakshas's Great Katana was in the round table shop, so that was a complete waste of time. So yeah, that put us behind for the first bit for a while, but I had a lot of map presence established for like the mid game, which allowed us to catch up pretty nicely. And then yeah, once we started getting online, like we really weren't making too bad of plays.
Yeah. For me, I don't know, like I need to just like commit to things, because I acknowledged the hanging paw bell bearing square, but like I also knew that Blanks was gonna be against me, and I was like, I'm just not gonna like compete against blanks on any of the fast squares, so that, and also the talismans. And so I also saw the Hippo Leda thing, and I was gonna go for that. But I just had like a little bit of issues with my weapon. I don't know what weapon the other team used, but my weapon damage was horrible. And like, and I don't know, I just wish I had gone Hanging Pot Bell Bearing sooner, because I was on the way to do that. And then yeah, I don't think that our plan was super bad. I think my downfall was just how slow my fights were, and I was really close to the 8 remembrances, and I just wish I had some better damage, but yeah.
Yeah, that Serpent Bone Blade not really bringing the damage that you needed. But one thing that we also, I think, did notice is that, Parky, I don't think you ever, did you buy talismans at all from Kale to kind of like up your damage a little bit?
I bought a damage negation talisman. That's all I bought.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because when it came to like the fights, like your DPS definitely wasn't bad, but like having some of the, you know, like the Physic Tears or like Rod Sword Insignia or Ritual Sword Talisman, I think would have helped a lot, because your fights were really good. Like your fights were very solid. The Hippo fight was good. Like you were actually racing blanks on the Hippo fight, but sadly not having like those damage talismans like really just made you like just so much slower, you know?
Yeah, I'm really bummed because my fights were really clean. I was actually really proud of how my fights were going, and I just like what blanks? What weapon did you have?
I found the golden halberd in Round Table.
Yeah, so this is just, I mean, I didn't quite realize that the katana pickup was mixed with all the katanas. I thought it was just gonna be great katanas, because when I was practicing last night, I had gotten great katanas, so I was like, okay, it's definitely just great katanas. And then so I got this, and then I was gonna try and put poison or bleed on it, and then I just got mixed up with the stuff. And then I was gonna go get Aggie was like Rakshasas in the round table, and then we realized that the round tables aren't the same. And then I was like, okay, well, at this point I was gonna have to commit to what I have.
Yeah, that threw us for a loop a bit.
Yeah.
Definitely something that would be good to know for the actual season, but for now, like, it's fine. But yeah, whatever, it is what it is. It's not like the weapon was horrible, it's just like, yeah, like the Romina fight was so slow. The Mesmer fight was so slow.
It was definitely, I think, just like a whirlwind of just an unfortunate thing where you get Serpent Bone Blade, you're like, okay, well, this is smithing, at least the katana I can use as an upgrade this. And then it's like, okay, well, let me put a wet blade on this. Oh wait, hold on. It's a weird, unique katana that you can't change the Ash of War on, nor can like change the affinity. Yeah. It's very silly. Yeah, it's one of the like very unique weapons in the game where you can't do any of that, but like no one ever uses it.
That's good that I got that one.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate, just definitely unfortunate. But you guys did great. And Zoodle Blanks here, doing a lot of great calls. The rush on Red Wolf Red Bear. I mean, Zoodle, he had a really early Red Wolf here. Was that early on the plan was just like, okay, I can kill Red Wolf very easily and just get like map presence and stuff while I do that and get some money?
Yeah. I thought when I get Red Wolf and like blanks that he's gonna go for Hippo and for Red Bear afterwards, then I have Renala as a remembrance. I'm faster to Mount Gelmir if I have to go for Ryket early, whatever noble, which also works with Altus bosses. So that worked out really well. And then I was like, okay, let's get bowls, but I choked twice, so I was like, okay, I'm not going for bowls blanks. And then I just went for Elima, because especially when Bloodhound Knight was marked, I was already in the castle and I was like, okay, middle square is ours. And then, I don't know, from there on, I feel like everything went really well until Millennia. Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. So the Red Wolf at the beginning was pretty decent, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were kind of like debating like if I should go for Red Bear first or Hippo first, but I decided on Hippo because it kind of like gives you priority on the letter rune. Like they kind of can't go for that unless they want to challenge you on that. But yeah, I mean, I think overall we executed a game plan.
I do have one question for Parky. You've mentioned previously that you've really struggled with nerves when it comes to bingo, which I absolutely get you. It's a very nerve-wracking sort of thing. Have you found that the team format sort of centers you a little bit more, keeps you a little bit more focused on the game? Do you prefer it or do you not prefer it?
Oh yeah, I like swore to never participate in another actual bingo season again, but today's game was so fun, and I feel like I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just Aggie, because Aggie and I, have a bit of a bond. Maybe it's just with Aggie, but I feel a lot more confident. And like some of the bad choices I was making today, I knew that it would be the right choice, and then I didn't do it because I was asking Aggie questions, and it was like, whatever. And I just feel like I can think so much clearer in the, again, I don't know if it's the team format or just Aggie, but like I actually feel like that was a lot of fun. And my boss fights, I was really good, and I definitely feel like the nerfs are so much better, and less pressure on me. And obviously Aggie just being such a good player and like cleaning up so much of the base game makes me feel less stressed out. And yeah, absolutely, I think it's easier on the team. Do you think so also?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, for you.
Yes, from my perspective, I absolutely agree. You looked like you weren't nearly as panicked. The one moment that I noticed it the most was when you got sniped on Golden Hippo, and I think a lot of the times we would normally see you sort of panic a little bit, maybe quit out, not finish up the fight, not get the runes, not get the map progress, but you stayed calm, you stayed in the fight, you didn't have any sort of issue, and you finished it up and stayed in the game, which is I think what you needed to be doing there.
I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you. It's something I've been struggling a lot with Bingo Brawlers, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was curious how that was going to play out, because to me personally, from me playing and practicing, this is probably the most stressful format, because you have to rely on your teammate and you can't like make up for what they might be, lacking in that current match. Like whatever you do, you can do, but anything else is kind of like a little bit outside of your control. And in this case, it kind of happened in this match a little bit where like Aggie was kind of responsible for a lot of the blocks happening.
Oh yeah.
Aggie, how did that feel for you? I guess in this case, where like the diagonal and column 5 and row 1 were all kind of building, but they all had base game blocks that were needed to make that not happen. Like what was going on in your mind? Seeing all of that kind of like falling on your shoulders in that regard.
I mean, obviously, I felt a little bit overloaded, but like the way this played out, I just happened to have some pretty good progress on all of those, just based on what I had done earlier. Like I was already near a lot of seals. Like the Langgrave bosses and god bosses and seals actually have a surprising amount of synergy, like as a trio.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know, they just all kind of connect into each other nicely. So like once I got one, I was like, okay, I could probably just get all of them, which I did. So that was fortunate. But yeah, definitely can be pretty stressful if it's like, okay, you have to do this, and like your teammate cannot possibly help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely increase the intensity.
Yeah, I was very grateful that Aggie pulled those off. Obviously, that really helped. I kind of felt the same with the Remembrances, because that kind of square was relying on me at that point. Which I mean, I think I would have gotten that with a little bit better damage. I was so close. But I feel like it's definitely, as much as it adds pressure, like if it's something that you're not super scared of doing, like it's kind of fun, So yeah, I don't know. I actually really like the format. I think it's really cool.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of work put into this one, so I'm glad people are really liking it. One last question from me here for Blanks. You kind of definitely put a lot of pressure on this board with some of the decisions you made as well. I mean, with Zoodle, definitely. But just in general, like really committing to that concert Radon, even though you probably assumed that you were pretty far ahead on the Radon fight, but you still kind of commit to that. Was that just because Radon had its own square, or was that because you and Zoodle together really decided like, hey, we should really push Remembrance Square here to really push that row 1 potentially?
Yeah, I that was basically the call, was like, okay, Radon is Remembrance boss, so I have to get it done eventually if I'm gonna like get this square. I mean, maybe I could have chosen different Remembrances, but I did 5. I did Ralana, Mesmer, Romina, and Consort. So I mean, I didn't really have many options, so it was basically just go for the square that I'm closest to. Like I feel like that'd be closer than going to like Bale or something. So I decided on Radon because it's a square. It's also a block for row 5 and I guess column 2, because there was no squares in that column at the time. And yeah, just like pushing the Remembrance Square. That was basically the goal there that we had in mind.
Yeah. Is there a line that as Team Zoinxz that you guys really wanted to prefer before it got blocked perchance, or is there like it was mostly you guys kind of pushed like the majority game?
I think early on we already saw like column 4 because I prepped also very early like my weapon for +9, and I thought like, okay, I'm gonna try to prep for Millennia, but then also we were building like row 1, so we were like thinking about that, but we got like, because I was stuck too long on Millennia, eventually basically forced into going for majority. There were definitely some lines that looked really good that maybe could have worked out, but yeah, just the game basically went into that direction.
Yeah, super fair.
We're definitely
super
looking
fair.
at pushing seals for sure. Like as Aggie was doing that, we were like, well, okay, let's see if we can get seals. And then I guess once that fell through, we went for Millennia instead.
Fair.
Yep.
Gotcha. All right. Anything else from you guys at all? Any feedback on the format or any questions that maybe were unsure during the match? Or you're like, okay, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do this or.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, my thing was just the round table being different, just to make sure I didn't put the wrong seat in. But no.
Yeah, is that intentional or no? Because I thought it'd be part of strategy to align round tables.
No. It's a strategy to not align them because first of all, it introduces more weapon variety for just the overall bingo match, but also it forces you to make your own decision on what build you think is most optimal, rather than you and your teammate literally doing the exact same build pretty much in both versions of the game. Yeah, so the round tables being different is by design for sure.
Okay.
For me, sorry. Go ahead. No, you go.
Okay, fine.
No,
do we still have the squares kill with backhand blade or kill with a great katana, or whatever? Sell whatever, like the weapon squares. Are those still here?
No. Anything that was specific, it has been taken out. So anything that's like, sell Bloodfiend's arm is not in anymore. Collecting the DLC sorceries or incants is not in anymore. So a lot of like very specific things are taken out and replaced with more either co-op squares or other DLC squares.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
I have to say, I think this format is for co-op or like for 2 versus 2 the best. I'm really enjoying it because for me personally, the season 3 was really overwhelming with everyone being able to do every square, and now having like distinct roles makes it super fun. And there's like this thing where you have to rely on your team partner, but I feel like that gives a little bit of a a team spirit and makes it a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it, honestly. The only change I think would be just more combined squares, like not on the board, I mean the variety, I would say.
Yeah,
A lot of the combined squares are like, okay, you kill this, I kill this, as opposed to like something a little more fluid. Like the 8 different remembrances is interesting because like it could be a lot on one player and just like 1 or 2 on the other.
Yep.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. It's a testing phase. That's we're trying out just different co-op squares to see like what's flexible, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. So yeah, I appreciate the feedback. Yeah, I'm glad that people are liking it. I'm glad you guys are liking it too. And yeah, it's the whole point. It's like to have a bit more team spirit in that case, where you have to rely and really trust your partner and really talk about like a strategy and being like, okay, well I can do this. We can both work on this together. I think that's a really cool thing. Yeah, man. Well, GG's to Zoinxz,
Wait,
man.
Can I also just add, on the note of the co-op squares, something that Egg and I were talking about last night was like, 'cause with some of the co-op squares, I understand that you want to make it like, okay, one person has to contribute, but I would say like maybe it's worth considering that one person doesn't have to contribute, because that also kind of adds some variety, So like Crucible Knights, for example, like, one person can do, like the base game can do all 3. Maybe it's not. Like, it kind of just affects the strategy a little bit, too. You know what I mean? Or, like, the Talisman one or whatever else there's for co-op.
Yeah, I don't know. Personally, I like it that you have to contribute because that forces then both players to really, put time into it. I think that is part of the beauty. But I don't know. That's something that we could always play around with to see if that feels better if not both players have to contribute.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think some either-or squares could also be interesting, where it's like, there's a square that's like kill a remembrance boss with a remembrance weapon, but it's specifically for DLC. But like, I mean, you could do that in base game if it weren't marked specifically for DLC.
Yeah, that was a chat suggestion as well at some point, which was kind of like a free-for-all square, which might not be a bad idea either, because you could have 5 of each, technically, category-wise. So you could have like an anyone square, a base square, a DLC square, and co-op square. You could have like all 4 categories instead. And that way, that kind of like opens it up even more. It's definitely not a bad idea at all. It would just make the list a little bit more tricky to set up, but that's something that I can do just fine. That'd be something I have to try out, obviously,